Released by Konami in 1995 on the PlayStation, Suikoden would be the first installment in the RPG series loosely based on the Chinese novel Water Margin, also called All Men Are Brothers. Directed by Yoshitaka Murayama, the game would feature 108 recruitable party members, strategic warfare battles, and being able to field 6 members at a time in random encounters. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. As the game begins, it is star year 453 as a young warrior named Tyr joins his father Teo, who is one of the 5 great generals of the Scarlet Moon Empire, in an audience with Emperor Barbarossa. Teo is assigned to secure the northern border from trouble brewing against the United City-States of Jowstone. The Emperor even gives the general his personal blade for this task, as he asks Tyr to also aid in national defense, and the youth agrees. Tyr is assigned to a man named Kraze as his commanding officer, as that night Teo toasts his son and the allies that reside in his home. He gives thanks to Gremio, a devoted servant who has acted as a guardian to Tyr, bodyguard warriors Cleo and Pan, and Ted, Tyr's steadfast best friend. The next day, Teo goes on ahead as Tyr takes his entourage with him to a contemptuous Commander Kraze, who assigns him to deliver a report from Leknath the Seer, the younger sister of court magician Wendy, who has been looking into the stars. An apprentice dragon knight Futch taxis the group there on his black dragon named Black as the group meets Leknath, and she sees Tyr is bound for a grand but painful destiny. The seer adds his choices can steer the immediate course of events and hands him her report as he delivers it back to Kraze. The commander then orders them to the town of Rockland and demand their payment of overdue taxes, assigning his lackey Kanan to lead the group. Traveling to the Dirtport town, the officer in charge blames local bandits for the lack of tax collection while hoisting the task of handling the thieves to the group. As the group complies, they travel to the mountain bandit hideout to find a giant ant queen guarding the area instead. Her legion of soldier ants wear down the group in a losing battle of attrition as Ted steps forward and reveals he is the bearer of the rune of life and death called Soul Eater, crushing the soul of the queen and sending it to hell. He stuns the group with a devastating attack but refuses to elaborate, though Kanan takes note for now. Approaching the bandit hideout, the leaders Varkas and Sidonia claim it's the Empire who are the tax thieves but are beaten down anyway and captured. Returning to town, they see the Imperial Army oppressing the civilians with violence and see Kanan accepting bribes as he brazenly takes credit for the arrests made. Returning to the capital, Kanan takes Ted with him to report back to Kraze, but that night Ted comes home with severe injuries, revealing Kraze took him to Windy to try and take away his cursed rune. He used his destructive magic to escape but was caught in the blast and shows his friends he is one of the 27 true rune bearers and has been hiding from Windy for over 300 years. His injuries are too grave now, and despite knowing it will bring great misfortune, he begs Tyr to be the next bearer of the cursed rune and keep it away from Windy. Tyr accepts, acknowledging the deep suffering it will bring him as Ted transfers the cursed rune to his right hand. At this time, Pan betrays them, bringing Kraze and the army here for Ted, who comes out to surrender himself so Tyr, Gremio, and Cleo can escape into the stormy night. A roguish man named Victor approaches them and helps them escape the city, taking advantage of the deep-rooted corruption of the Empire, and brings them to a young woman named Odessa, leader of the Liberation Army rebelling against the Empire. Victor introduces the now fugitive Tyr to his associates, but then a messenger from the mountain bandits arrives to request aid in freeing Varkas and Sidonia. As they only attack Imperials, they have been sentenced to death without trial, and the party objects to the illegal and extreme punishment. As they were the ones to capture the bandits, the group offers to help free them, as Victor joins along. The group storms the mansion head-on, saving the pair as Victor is impressed and urges the group to join the Liberation Army too. Returning to the hideout, Odessa approaches them with plans to build a powerful weapon called the Fire Spear to be used in future confrontations with the Imperial Army, but urgently needs them to help her deliver it to their secret foundry for production. Gremio is reluctant to completely turn his back on their homeland despite the problems with the Empire, but is more loyal to Tyr regardless. As Tyr accepts the task, they climb Mount Tigerwolf, running into more bandits who view Odessa as hope for the future, though to the side she privately confides in him that she finds the pressure of those expectations overwhelming. Odessa finds Tyr has a unique charisma about him as they complete the handoff for the plans, only to return to base to find their hideout being raided by the Empire. During the fight, Odessa sacrifices herself to protect a child, and as she dies, she asks Tyr to give her earring to her brother Matthew in Seika Village. She also requests that they conceal her death so the fledgling rebellion does not lose hope and collapse from this. Honoring her dying request, the group drops her body in the river and delivers her earring to Matthew, but he bitterly rejects it, never having approved of her endeavor. Just then, Imperial soldiers storm Matthew's home and order him to return to service as an army doctor, threatening the orphans he takes care of. The group takes down the soldiers instead, but Matthew does not appreciate all the killing in front of the children. The doctor explains he left the army and could not stand the horrors of war despite being called a war hero and left a life of violence, even though Odessa called him a coward for it. That said, he sees now, regardless of how he feels about it, the world will still move on, so he should use his power after all. He still refuses to accept the earring, explaining whoever wears it is recognized as the leader of the freedom fighters, recommending Tyr lead the rebels instead. The young warrior accepts the responsibility as Matthew pledges to serve as his military surgeon and say they must revive the Liberation Army with a recruitment effort right now. For this, they will need a new headquarters site to gather those who are dissatisfied with the Empire, and he knows of an abandoned castle in the middle of Lake Torin that would be perfect. Wishing to check out the castle, they clear the site of a monster infestation, including a massive zombie dragon, claiming it for themselves. Leknot appears before them, bearing gifts to help Tyr on his journey and his quest to recruit just about everyone in the land who has a character portrait. During the Grassroots campaign, Tyr encounters Commander Kraze and Pan again, as Pan has had enough of Kraze's cruelty, choosing to join Tyr now and help take down Kraze for good. When they return, Varkas and Sidonia are there to return the favor and join their bandits to the Liberation Army too, as does Lepant, a powerful merchant and warrior who was personally endorsed by Matthew. However, an assassin suddenly strikes at Tyr, demanding the rune on his hand, and though he fails, he laughs and leaves while claiming Windy is always ready to destroy him. Improving their security, they see an elf named Kirkus washed up on their shore, desperately begging the newly rebuilt Liberation Army to come to their aid as Imperial General Kwanda is leading an extermination force to wipe out all elves. Matthew feels it's too early to mobilize the whole army, so instead they send a small reconnaissance unit to gather intelligence. Kirkus guides the group to his forest village through an enchanted forest as a mysterious woman named Vicky blinks in before them to join up before blinking away again. They pass by the strangely empty kobold village where they learn everyone was taken away and is sick as per a lone survivor named Kuromimi. When they arrive at the treetop elf village, they find the elves there aren't worried, feeling humans are too feeble-minded and inferior to defeat the elves. In the same attitude, the elder disapproves of Kirkus' efforts and dismisses the notion that humans can protect them, ordering the group be arrested. The group doesn't resist and meets another Imperial turncoat named Valeria who had tried to warn the elves about Kwanda too. She shares that Kwanda has developed a secret weapon called the Burning Mirror that is able to incinerate an entire forest in an instant. When she learned her village in the same forest was going to be destroyed as well, she quit the Imperial army and leaked this information to the elves, but they refused to believe her and jailed her instead. The granddaughter of the village elder, Sylvina, comes down to talk to Kirkus, trying to understand why he doesn't detest humans and dwarves like the other elves, and while she doesn't understand his beliefs, she does believe in him and frees him, the group, and a fleet-footed elf named Stallion who dashes off. Kirkus feels they can stop the completion of the Burning Mirror if they get the help of the dwarves too, repeating that if their races work together, then they can defeat the Empire. Climbing the mountain the dwarves called home, they pass by Kuromimi again, who claim the dwarves are withholding the secret to curing his people's sickness. Beyond is the home of the dwarves forged in stone and metal, where they speak to the chief and learn the Burning Mirror is one of their treasures. He doesn't believe the blueprints were stolen by Kwanda, and even if they were, he finds it funny humans would use it to kill the elves. He challenges them to prove their vault can be breached by dumb elves and slow humans in the first place, as the group indeed bypasses their security, mazes, and monsters within. Begrudgingly accepting their story now, the chief reveals the Burning Mirror can be directly countered and destroyed by another of their treasures, the Firewind Cannon. He agrees to give them one, but on the way back to the elven village, the group sees they are too late as the forest is already on fire. By the time they arrive, the entire village is completely annihilated with no survivors. As Kirkus despairs at the loss of his loved ones, especially Sylvina, whom he was planning to propose to, Gremio reminds them they need to focus on defeating Kwanda and destroying the Burning Mirror from causing more tragedy. At the Kobold village, they spot Kuromimi chased by an Imperial patrol, but soon find themselves surrounded as well. Backed into a corner, they join forces with the Kobold to fight off as many as they can, but they are about to be overrun by sheer numbers before Matthew arrives with reinforcements. It turns out Sylvina believed in Kirkus and warned the Liberation Army about the Burning Mirror with the help of the speedy elf Stallion, mobilizing them early and avoiding death themselves. Kirkus is relieved Sylvina is alive, as Matthew informs Tyr the remnants of the old Liberation Army have arrived, and now they have a sufficient force to challenge Kwanda. Preparing for their first sortie, the Liberation Army chooses to engage General Kwanda's forces at Pannu Yakuta Castle, overcoming their disadvantage with numbers with rapid shifts into advantageous tactical formations. Under pressure, the enemy resorts to activating the Burning Mirror, but just in time the chief of the dwarves shatters the weapon with a shot from the Windfire Cannon. Storming his keep, Tyr's team confronts Kwanda, who reveals Lady Windy has given him a powerful black rune, though after his loss to Tyr in single combat, Kwanda falls over in pain as the black rune leaves him. He surrenders as the group notices a total change of demeanor as he explains the rune he was given gave him power over monsters, but it also began to affect his willpower. Wondering if the Emperor knew about this, Kwanda accepts Tyr's offer to join the Liberation Army, still loyal to Barbarossa, but not trusting the current Emperor's state. All the same, the curse on the kobolds is broken, as Kuromimi and those displaced by the recent strife swear to join the army as well. 3 months pass as the warrior Flick returns after gathering the scattered remains of the old Liberation Army and demands to know where the missing Odessa is. Matthew decides to break the news of her death, infuriating Flick, who refuses to recognize Tyr's leadership in light of this, but understands they still need to be a united front. He adds that after the Leinenkamp attack, he escaped towards Milich Oppenheimer's domain in the west and urges them to focus on liberating that land next. Tyr agrees, and with the old and new Liberation armies combined, their forces storm Garen Fortress easily enough. Matthew urges caution, unsure of what the great Imperial General's thinking, but a vengeful Flick urges that they continue their momentum, diving straight into a cunning trap of a battlefield full of poisonous roses that devastate their side, forcing the Liberation Army to retreat in defeat. Investigating this new bioweapon, Tyr meets growing support for his army, obtains a revolutionary motorized boat, and finds a legendary pharmacist Lucan who can create an antidote to Milich's toxic poison. However, this move was anticipated by Milich, who swoops in, introduces himself, and kidnaps Lucan to imprison him. Matthew has an idea on how to break the doctor out, using his connections to craft a forged release form with Milich's own seal. Walking through the prison front door easily, they rescue Lucan with no issue, but Milich is waiting for them on the way out. He locks the group in a room with him, taking out a bottle filled with something called the Spores of Agony, explaining the spores eat human flesh. Milich smashes the bottle on the ground before making a quick exit as Gremio hurries to open the door and get everyone out. However, the door can only be operated from the inside as Gremio stays behind, saying he's proud to see how Tyr has grown up and no longer needs his protection, quickly being devoured by the spores. The group stays put as the spores spread throughout the prison, eating everyone else alive as they are later rescued and Tyr mourns the loss of his guardian and friend. Seeing the display of loyalty to Tyr, Flick admits he understands why Odessa chose him, as the army now prepares to attack Milich's base of Scarleticia Castle. Grateful, the pharmacist joins the group, producing the antitoxin protection they need to push past the poison pollen and pierce through Milich's position. Wishing to avenge Gremio, Tyr's party storms the castle, confronting Milich just as he seizes up in pain, stating the rune he received from Lady Windy is melting away. In an instant, his personality changes and he has no memory of recent events as Matthew notices the emerging pattern as soon as people accept Windy's black runes. Calmly, Milich explains the Emperor has been enraptured by Windy because of her resemblance to his late wife, Empress Claudia, and is completely blind to her evil intent. The general wishes to join the Liberation Army in order to free the Emperor from his mental prison, and though most of the group is reluctant to accept Gremio's killer, they defer to Tyr's decision. Just then, they are alerted to the Imperial Army marching upon their home base as they hear from a ninja named Kasumi that her village of Rokaku has fallen to Tyr's father, General Teo, who leads the advance. With no time to prepare, Matthew tests the power of their foe with a skirmish, but the Liberation Army is thoroughly routed by the armored cavalry as General Teo shows no mercy even to his son. Declaring them all traitors, the general seeks to completely eliminate the Liberation Army as Pan tries to stall for time for Tyr to escape. Teo honors Pan's final stand with a one-on-one duel as Pan edges out a win, and out of respect, Teo falls back for now. As the others make it back safely, Tyr is visited by Leknot, who reveals she and her sister Windy are survivors of the Clan of the Gate. Tyr's rune, the Soul Eater, is one of the 27 true runes, all of which hide terrible powers within them. Windy also carries a true rune, the Gate rune, and should she obtain Tyr's rune, their fully unleashed power would be catastrophic for the world. She adds Tyr has not yet unlocked the full power of the Soul Eater, giving him some encouragement before leaving. The next day, Flick has the idea to utilize the fire spears Odessa had commissioned to even the odds against Teo's cavalry, but they don't know if the secret factories survived the Imperial raids. Visiting the mountain again, they find that while Imperial forces have cracked down on the bandits, their secret factory is safe and the fire spear order is ready for pickup. Arming themselves, the Liberation Army finds their secret weapon is just the edge they need to tip the scales to victory, defeating the Imperial Army and forcing Teo to challenge his son to a duel for the fate of the battle. Father and son clash on opposite sides of loyalty as Tyr emerges triumphant, and his father admits he is proud of how strong he has become. He has no regrets, living for what he believed in and fought for the Emperor alone out of stubbornness. He orders his most loyal lieutenants to support Tyr in his stead and passes on peaceably, wishing his son luck. While grieving, a beam of light opens up in the sky on Tyr as the Soul Eater rune grows in power and the weary Liberation Army pulls back from their most trying battle yet. With this crucial victory, along with victories in the south and the west, inspired insurgencies now surge across the empire, heavily distracting the imperial army and forcing them to reconsolidate their forces. As a result, several regions are poorly protected, as LaPont suggests this is their best opportunity to unite the various rebel factions. Checking out a nearby fortress, they are surprised to find it not just lightly guarded, but completely empty. Seeing several freshly opened graves, Matthew senses something is very wrong, as in the nearby warrior village they hear of someone called General Necklord in charge of the local imperial troops arriving 3 months ago, turning his soldiers into zombies and skeletons. He then turned to the local villages and demanded their women be delivered to him, but the proud descendants of Cliff the Crusader in this village refused to comply. Victor is personally motivated to fight and destroy Necklord, revealing he used to be human but misused a rune and became a vampire, also destroying Victor's home village and turning his family into zombies. Able to walk in the daylight, Necklord greets them all the next morning, easily defeating the village's best defenders and Tyr's team. Snatching away another maiden who surrenders in order to spare the village, Victor is frustrated at how powerless they are, explaining most weapons are useless against vampires, much less runic vampires. Investigating the secret of a nearby temple for a lead, they encounter a priest who recognizes Tyr as the Star Master, the one destined to lead the 108 stars of heaven and earth. Everyone Tyr has gathered so far, and will gather, were all born under certain stars and destined to gather under Tyr, who was born under the Star of Heavenly Guidance. The monk also knows they seek a means to destroy the vampire Necklord, leading them to the Cave of the Past, containing a sentient sword called the Star Dragon Sword. The sword throws all of them into a strange village where they encounter Ted as a young boy, as well as a younger Necklord and Wendy, who demand a Soul Eater rune. It turns out this is the village of the hidden rune, and as Wendy's crony Uber begins to destroy the village to find the rune, the chief uses the Soul Eater rune to stun the invaders long enough to get the group away and bequeath the Soul Eater to his grandson Ted. The chief then asks them to take Ted away from the village as he holds off Wendy, as Cleo realizes this is the Ted they knew, and this is the event 300 years ago he mentioned. A portal returns to the present as the Star Dragon Sword calls out to Victor, agreeing to join him on his mission to slay Necklord, affirming it has the power to do so. Trusting in the sword, Victor and the group arrive in time for the warrior village to storm Necklord's castle. Witnessing a young warrior step up and declare his intent to save the girl Necklord just took away, the young man's valor is recognized as he joins Tyr in interrupting the vampire from playing the organ. Clashing, a strike from the Star Dragon's sword indeed slices through the vampire's defenses, leaving him vulnerable for the entire group to work together and smite him. The blade reveals it is the Night Rune transformed, adding Necklord merely adopted the darkness, while the sword was born in it and molded by it. With a final slash, Victor ends Necklord's 500-year reign of terror, the young warrior earns the heart of the maiden, and the warrior's village swears allegiance to the Liberation Army. Victor is grateful to Tyr for this opportunity to satisfy his quest for revenge, taking a momentary leave to inform his village of the news. Returning to Torin Castle, the group learns the North is being heavily reinforced with a standing army that far dwarfs their current numbers. LaPont again points out their best chance is to unite the rebel forces around the country, and among them, Captain Humphrey already has a contact within the powerful but otherwise neutral Dragon Knights. However, the commander of the Dragon Knights, Joshua, refuses to see anyone, and wondering why that is, they catch a sight of a pompous noble named Vincent trying to swindle his way into and also speak with Joshua. Among the many lies he tells, one thing that seems to be true is that he's familiar with the Dragon Knight's domain, revealing a back way that leads to a dragon den. As they see all the clan's dragons deep asleep, Futch, the dragon rider they met earlier, recognizes them and helps them get an audience with Joshua. They learn Joshua has the Dragon Rune, another true rune, and also one that grants him immortality. Joshua's glad to see Humphrey and shares that while it is true many have grown dissatisfied with the current emperor, the fact is they cannot do much about it, as a few months ago all of their dragons have fallen asleep and have not awakened since. They have had every doctor look into the matter to no avail, but the legendary Dr. Lucan quickly figures out the dragons have been afflicted by a sleeping poison. Fortunately, he can also craft an antidote, but as they hurry to gather the ingredients, the group is halted by Wendy herself, asking Tyr to join her with his Soul Eater rune. To convince him, she summons forth Ted, who seems normal and politely asks for the rune back. Tyr doesn't buy the ruse for a moment, blasting away the image of his friend, but in his mind, the real Ted speaks to Tyr, saying there is still a lingering connection between him and the rune. He explains his body has been taken over by Wendy's Conqueror rune, and soon his soul will be taken over too, so it is not him, and he apologizes for what he's going to do. Back in reality, Ted speaks to the Soul Eater rune, saying he knows the rune's evil intent, causing war and conflict for hundreds of years as an opportunity to harvest countless souls and grow in power. It is especially potent with the souls closest to its current master, ordering the rune to claim his soul now too, as Ted's soul is consumed and the Soul Eater grows even mightier with the 300 years of life Ted had. Wendy is upset she is unable to stop this, taking her leave as Ted says farewell to his friend Tyr for good this time, resting in peace with a long overdue true death. Meanwhile, Futch is on his own gathering another ingredient at the Imperial Castle, surprised to run into Emperor Barbarossa, who learns Futch is on a mission to wake the sleeping dragons, feeling this is Wendy's work again. Still, Barbarossa has no intention of stopping Futch as the boy quickly thanks him and takes his leave right before Wendy arrives to try and stop him, shooting a bolt of lightning at him to knock him out of the sky. Futch's dragon Mount Black dies, but Futch barely survives as he is found and rescued and the antidote is made. All the dragons are cured of their drugged sleep as a grateful Joshua is glad to ally the Dragon Knights with the Liberation Army. Futch, no longer a Dragon Knight without a dragon, agrees to join the Liberation Army as they all return home where they are met by an envoy from a noble named Warren who reports that General Kasim has taken over Teo's northern defenses and is now moving to crush the level factions one by one and reclaim their lost ground. Victor was with Warren at the time when his manor was surrounded for harboring fugitives and now both are in prison. Kasim's army is both large and well trained, and Matthew publicly declares their own troops need some proper military training in order to fight effectively as a group. Posing as a military drill, Matthew orders a real attack on northern forces to catch them off guard, and this blitz works against the first checkpoint, capturing its commander Griffith. With this new foothold and keeping ahead of a suspected spy among them, Matthew quickly orders multiple strikes against nearby fortresses, using this opportunity to not only chip away at General Kasim, but distract him in multiple directions from their real objective, sneaking into the Moravian Manor to rescue Ward and Victor. Using Griffith, they have him pretend to have captured Matthew to enter the manor easily and stall General Kasim, while Tyr and Kasumi sneak into the prison. Kasim greets Matthew and offers him a place back in the Imperial Army, adding he sees through his distraction plan and has reinforcements ready to crush the divided Liberation Army. However, Matthew counters that he was counting on Kasim's readiness and had reinforcements of his own to intercept the Jowstone army from an ambitious city-state ready to take the Empire. He clarifies they did not ally themselves with Jowstone, just open the opportunity for them to seize and occupy this land. At this time, Tyr, Victor, LaPont, and Humphrey all arrive, their individual missions accomplished, and ask Kasim to surrender. Even Milich arrives to persuade Kasim to see how something is wrong with the Emperor, and the generals have failed in preventing the Empire from deteriorating. Understanding the Emperor needs his eyes opened, Kasim surrenders and joins the Liberation Army as they retreat and let the city-state of Jowstone take over. With this, the only Imperial land is the capital itself, and while their military now rivals that of the Empires, the capital is still well fortified on land and sea. Matthew knows all of their victories have been on land so far, so the Empire will be expecting this and thus will throw a tactical curveball and prepare a massive invasion on their waterfront. On the eve before the big battle, Victor gives Tyr Gremia's hatchet as a memento and a reminder that many people will not survive tomorrow, and yet he must go on for the sake of every soldier who believes in a better future. Using an ice dragon to fashion a fleet of 500 boats made of sturdy ice, the Liberation Army lays siege to the floating fortress Shazarazade, overwhelming them with superior tactics. Matthew orders the fortress burned down with oil as Tyr's team enters to force the surrender of the last of the 5 great generals, Sonia. Cornered, she questions Tyr's sense of justice, as just then the oil is lit aflame far too early with them still inside. As flames surround them, Sonia makes a last stand and loses as Victor opts to take her with them and everyone hurries to escape. Outside, they are shocked to see Matthew gravely injured on the ground and Flick confronting Liberation Army co-founder Sanchez as the one who lit the fires early. Sanchez reveals he never betrayed them as he has always been in the employ of the Emperor since the War of Succession 7 years ago. He also confesses to being the spy they were looking for, firmly loyal to the Emperor, and is also the one who leaked the original hideout location that led to Odessa getting killed. He admits at some point their purpose and passion began to sway him and likes them all as people, even regretting losing Odessa, mentioning she loved Flick too. Outraged, Flick is about to strike Sanchez down, but Matthew pauses him, saying they cannot kill Sanchez as a spy now, else it will damage morale right before the final battle. Gathering their forces in the last of the 108 stars, preparations are complete to march on the capital Gregminster. As they rally the troops, Leknot appears to inform Tyr that Wendy is looking for vengeance against the entire world, as centuries ago the clan of the Gate were powerful people and were wiped out because of fear of that power. As 2 halves of the rune of the Gate, Wendy tried to kill Leknot and take her rune, which is why she has isolated herself until now. With Gremio dead, they are only 107 stars strong, but she now reveals her rune power, opening the gates of dimensions to miraculously resurrect Gremio, stating she can only do this once, thanks to all the stars gathered here. All 108 stars truly assemble, the United Liberation Army marches to the capital in high spirits, but are halted as scouts see an army 5 times larger than what they estimated before, wondering how that could be. Leknot explains Wendy has summoned legions of monsters from the netherworld to swell the ranks, but she can try banishing them, using her own power bolstered by Joshua and his powerful dragon rune to completely remove them and even the odds. Commanded by Uber alongside Kanan, the final Imperial forces crumble under the tide of the Liberation Army as there is nothing stopping them from marching directly to the Royal Palace. Victor and Flick join Tyr in the castle assault, running into the last standing general who has no hard feelings on the group and even let Victor escape earlier, and yet circumstances demand they must fight to the death. Victor bitterly slays the man he owes a favor to, remarking that some things can be right and useless at the same time, and the wrong thing can also be invaluable. Ascending a red-carpeted stairway, Tyr is greeted by Barbarossa, who reflects upon this flower garden as all that remains of his once mighty empire. Even still, he vows to protect his kingdom with everything he has, drawing the Dragon King's sword and using its power to ascend into a devastating golden 3-headed dragon form. Despite putting everything he has into this battle, Barbarossa is no match for Tyr and the collection of stars he has gathered, falling defeated as his surviving 4 generals all ask why he had changed. They blame Wendy just as she arrives, and while she's disappointed the Empire has fallen, she doesn't care so long as she can still claim Tyr's soul leader. She rushes over to try and take it by force, but she suddenly receives a vision of the room working to reject her, which leaves her confused. Barbarossa tries to get her to stand down too, as she responds by threatening to turn her magic against him too. However, Barbarossa now takes his time to reveal his sovereign rune protects him against any form of magic, even hers, and he was only pretending to be under her control. Grasping Wendy, Barbarossa tells her he loves her, not as a shadow of his late wife, but as herself, and this was his only mistake that cost him his entire empire. With a tone of finality, he asks Tyr what kind of land he will create as he jumps off of the balcony with a surprised Wendy in hand as they fall to their death together. Suddenly, the ground rumbles as the palace begins to fall apart as the group hurries to escape, and Victor and Flick lag behind to hold off vengeful Imperial holdouts. Outside, the Liberation Army cheers for their victory, and their cries reach Matthew, who dies quietly in bed from his wounds, wondering if he did the right thing betraying his values and taking the lives of so many regardless of the reason. As the game ends, Tyr becomes president of the new Tauren Republic, with many prominent allies becoming key personnel in the new structure, though Victor, Flick, and especially Vicky disappear after the final battle. The rest of the 108 stars of heaven and earth scattered to their individual fates, though the loyal Gremio would still accompany Tyr on his continued wanderings. Suikoden has enjoyed the success of selling over 650,000 copies worldwide.